everybody. This is what we consider our Kang's house. That warms my heart. Welcome you back to your first LCI Northern California video practice. You guys just kind of use this thing. Yeah. So, our bonus, we moved it to January, where it is today, and it's already loaded for the first of the year. It's a great way to start off, especially after the holidays. Mental health is something we all want to think about all year, but sometimes it can be tougher as we get closer to the holidays. And here we are back at the back end of the year, so great timing. Hope you enjoyed the meal. Rate and subscribe. Thank you everybody for the meal today. Appreciate it. Dessert, so say goodbye to your resolutions for the year. Coffee service over here, and I'll continue to drink drinks. We never say this, but the alcohol's on you. So if you want to get booze, you can get it downstairs. If you're downstairs, you get a receipt for it. Sodas and water on the house. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just do a couple of slides here. Go ahead. Awesome. So, okay, so brand new year, brand new us. We have a sustaining sponsorship program. If you don't know about this, companies are encouraged to participate with us. And what they get out of it is, well, you get three free registrations for any of these type of events. None of the higher paid trainings, but any of these global events that we do, the hour and a half presentations, free all year. We put your name on everything. You're on our website, you're on the national website, you are at these events.
On YouTube.
You're all over YouTube. We'll talk about that in a bit. You're all over YouTube, you're on LinkedIn. You're not quite on Instagram yet, but maybe we'll figure that out someday. We'll get your name out there. So anyway, these are our sponsors today. If you don't see your name on this list and you're a part of a company who would love to be on this list, one receptacle over here can help you out. We'll get you his email if you need more. You start talking about him. Does not bite.
Or.
All right, I just mentioned LinkedIn. Where's Candace at? Who's Candace? Hi, Candace. Candace is taking pictures. I wonder why she's taking pictures right now.
Yeah.
Candace is helping us market and doing business development, as we call it here. And if you can take out your phones right now and get in here to that little QR code, that's going to send you right to our LinkedIn page. I'm sure, well, some of you probably get emails from us, you probably get corporate. If you get linked up on LinkedIn with us, you're going to get all the good stuff, right? You're going to know exactly what's happening when, you're going to find out why you need to be there, why it supports you. It's a great place for us all to connect. I talked about the sponsorship program. I do want to highlight this for you. It's $2,000 a year. You get all the things I just talked about, those 3 bullet points, which I think I covered. The important thing for this year is that we're going to be ceasing that program on the 1st of May this year. So it's one of those things, don't wait. It's an annual program, so the longer you wait, it's diminishing returns. So the sooner you get in there, you get all of these events. We're going to do at least 16 events this year. Right? You're going to be all over those types of things. And you're going to be talking you up on LinkedIn too. Thank you. The next one. All right, so I talked about formally. So this is the first event of the year. We are going to have an invite-only event. So the sponsors, so you saw the 2026 sponsors. There are 19 sponsored companies in 2025. We're going to be celebrating those folks next week at a little event. After that, the next presentation type event is we're doing happy hours in both Oakland and Sacramento. And this is we do this every year. It's been really successful for us. We get together, we do basically a lean coffee in both Oakland and Sacramento. So we kind of cover as much as we can in Northern California. It's a big area. We get together and we just talk about what we want to know, what we want to learn, what kind of trainings we want in 2026. It really helps us feather out the rest of our schedule for the year. So you guys can be a part of that by just joining. Food, drinks, there is booze at that one. It's free. So come there, sign up. There's plenty of spots open right now. I think only about half full for both. So please be joined. We'll do one more thing I wanted to say about that. We are going to have training. So this year's 2026. One thing that I have said to everybody, at least in our COP, is that we want to really refocus on training. So you're going to see things like basic trainings. A lot of people are coming to these events that are new to lean and we really want to like lean into that, and that was fun, that was not. But we want to make sure that the folks that are coming here, they get some of that early trainings, are getting it from us. So there'll be a Life Planner training in February, and then there's this high performance leadership training is really important. We're going to try to do that early this year. It's an event where you can send yourself or something in your company for a day. And actually, if it's a mini training, it'll be a day, a full day training in 2 days. But we haven't figured that out yet. But essentially, it's a big commitment to go in there, but it's huge for us. I took the training last year, and like I've been a project manager for 20 years, and I learned a bunch of stuff, and it was fully valuable. So, all experience levels are welcome. Thank you. All right, so I kind of buried believe I didn't tell you what was going on today. We signed up. It was called Stigma to Strength. It was a mental health discussion today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Henry. Henry's going to introduce everybody else, okay? So we're very pleased and excited to have Henry come here today. Henry Nutt is the third from Southland to moderate for us today. You guys can give him a big round of applause.
Thank you, Tom. So very happy to be here with you guys today. I'm not going to introduce the group yet. I'm going to give them a second. It's going to be a little bit unorthodox today, so bear with us. But we have esteemed panelists that are going to share their hearts, minds, and strategies on all things mental health. And this is going to be not just a presentation with a bunch of bullet points. It's going to be engagement. We're going to have discussions. And talk about things that we're doing that's working, what's not working, and hear from you all as well. So, as Tom mentioned, do this right. I don't do that yet. So, from stigma to strength. So, think about this conversation. Think about mental health. I want to say, I was thinking about this in the wheel here. We have come a long way. We got a long way to go when it comes to mental health in construction, because we still have numbers that are going in the wrong direction. But I have to applaud us, because one thing we're doing that we didn't do many years ago is just have a conversation about it. Just having the confidence to say something, having the confidence on whether it's a senior level seasoned superintendent or a new kid just starting out can actually say something about how they're doing. And it's not soft, it's not weak, it's not like, that's what we used to say and make people feel, even if we didn't say it. That's how they felt, so what they did, they just stay quiet. They don't say anything. And so now we have an opportunity where we've had this conversation, where we're having these conversations, and people are now saying something. So we're really taking away the stigma. So I wanted to start out with that first and foremost and say, let's give ourselves a hand clap for that. That's really a big deal. They seem small, but the one thing that we never know about people is that we're sitting next to people that we may know and some people that we don't know. But the things that they have inside, we have no idea. And sometimes the way we find out is when they do something. And I'm like, damn it, I should have said something. I should have, right? And not to make you feel guilty about it, but it's just to say that we never know what people are going through at any time in their lives. And so if we are considerate of the fact that they could be going through something just like we could be, right? That we may handle that issue a little bit differently. And so I'm excited about our conversation today. When Norgaard set the stage, you kind of have to talk about the daunting stuff that still exists within our industry in comparison to other industries. And you've seen this data, I'm not going to go over it, but there's a couple of things that I want to highlight that I think we don't talk about enough. And we know that I'm a guy, we were raised not to cry and, all that kind of stuff, be tough. And we break, like literally. We break because we don't name our emotions. And so that's kind of well known. There's another data point I'm going to show you, but women make up like barely 12% of our industry. But women also are dying by suicide. And those numbers are above industry standard. Many times we just kind of gloss over that. When we think about, men who are rough and tough and aren't taught to deal with their emotions, now we're doing better with that. But women who are and still choose to do that in this industry above industry standard, that's a problem as well. And so it's something that we shouldn't gloss over because those numbers aren't going in the right direction as well. So more women are dying by suicide in our industry as well. So that's something that we want to make sure. Knowing that still alcohol, substance abuse is still an issue, above industry average. I'm sure all of us have a story about somebody who's, used and getting past the penalizing kind of discussion, like you find stuff in the outhouse and that's not okay, but it represents something else, right? That like, I don't think most people are just coming to having to shoot up today on the job site just because it's cool. I think it's because they have a problem, right? And should they be there? No. But before it's just about penalizing and firing, it's recognizing there's a deeper issue that's happening because I don't think anybody wants to come to work to get fired. But there's something there out of control that they feel like they have to cope. And that's the way they have learned how to cope. And not that it's just our industry, but it's happening more predominantly in our industry. And that's where we have to take responsibility and, again, have those conversations. So, kind of talked about this already, but just wanted to throw out some other data. Again, the numbers for women is growing in regards to taking their lives by suicide. In the bottom there, it talks about 2 quiet indicators we're tracking, like the near misses. And just kind of talking about how do we actually deal with this issue in a way like we would deal with a safety violation. We want to get down information and have these indicators kind of giving us an idea of where it's going that could lead to that near miss. Workers who needed mental health care could not afford it rose to 5.6% in 2024. And we know that's a huge issue with healthcare, big conversation around our country now and people losing healthcare. And then moderate psychology distress is trending up towards it's going up again. And thinking about all of this for me, and I think we can all relate to this, is a lot of this stuff that we're dealing with now and how we have this awareness about mental health and well-being, and all the different conversations we're having about just human beings in the industry. COVID had a lot to do with that. It kind of forced us to deal with our human side, no matter who you were. Doesn't matter. You could be rich, poor, black, white, whatever. Lived in the suburbs. Didn't matter where somebody died that you knew, and you couldn't control it. And we were all suddenly really forced to deal with that humanity in a way that we never had before. And so there was that for us to deal with, and it's hard to believe 6 years ago. But here we are, and I think again, we are having conversations that we never had. So today, we're gonna have a conversation. This is my last slide before these great people go. So, with that said, I'm gonna ask each of them to talk about one, who they are, who they work for, why it's important for them to be here today to have this conversation, and what they want you to walk away with.
Okay, thank you. My name's Shirley Hall, Chino Superintendent of South Bend Industries. And why am I here today? I have a piece of paper so I can just hit the bullet points, but these are questions that I know the answer to. But why this is important to me, I manage anywhere from 100 to 200 people, and managing people is, when you manage people, they come with all types of different backgrounds, problems, addictions, and so caring about people is it's not important doing my job, right? So this is also a little bit like the hardest topic to talk about, really, honestly, a little bit nervous. Like I would much rather talk about pool planning than this. you kind of get a little vulnerable and you leave it out on the table and you kind of give your real thoughts. So this is a delicate topic, right? And I can tell you that my career started out installing HVAC systems and it evolved into managing people now. I don't really install HVAC systems, I manage people. And it's really evolved. Like when I first started out, there was, if you showed feelings, you were soft. needed to be hard. Nobody had any patience for anything, and just over the years, like I've learned, you know what? I don't really feel good driving home after I acted like that, and I bet they don't feel good either. So, like, it's been an evolution, and there wasn't like a playbook, and nobody gave me any instructions and said, Charlie, this is how you manage people. And we went through a 5-year apprenticeship class, and they told me, you know, a history sheet metal on how to make a fitting. They never told me how to manage people. So, I kind of had to learn on my own, and it's been kind of a journey. So, through that, like in construction, we just put up the numbers here, and I don't know why the numbers are so great for this industry. Great meaning, you know, there's a lot of suicide, there's a lot of addictions. I was talking to a buddy about it, and like it may contribute to like the long hours that we work when it's feast or famine. You're working 10 hours a day, or you're getting laid off. So you're either away from your family, or then you're there with your family all the time, and you're stressing over bills. And I mean, it takes a toll on people, right? So I've seen that my whole career. I've seen, you know, addictions, divorces, layoffs, long hours, problems with children. I mean, the first big job that I was on, I was standing in a safety meeting with 500 people, and I just heard a head hit the concrete. And this gentleman that worked in this company for 25 years had a seizure right there, alcohol seizure. He was okay. Afterwards, they took him, he got removed, he went to a program for 30 days, came back, started drinking on the job after a month. They fired him. Within a year, that gentleman, he was dead from alcoholism. And like that's the first big job that I'm on. And just recently, like about a month ago, I'm talking to a guy that I had to lay off a couple months ago because I noticed he was, you know, things were changing. I knew that he was in recovery. Started drinking. He got laid off, but he called me, and I told him the real reason why. I'm like, hey, we got a problem here, and he went to a program recently. So like, but just to back up on that, like, I don't know how that guy for 25 years was drinking on the job, like Henry said, because people just stuffed it and swept it under the rug. So I try to take like the other approaches. I'm going to tell you directly, and we can talk about it, and I'm approachable, and I can help you out. So things like that. That is how my career has evolved. That's been the evolution. And in the industry, we used to not have any patience for any of this, for any life problems, and the reality of it is all those things that I talked about, the divorce, the long hours, like all that stuff I've been through. I've been through a divorce, like I've been through all this, so why do I get to not having patience for it when somebody else on my crew that I'm managing is going through, right? Why do I get to, you know, discredit that?
So what do you want people to take away?
So in this, I'm just looking for people to see the evolution that we used to not have any tolerance for this, and you need to get to know your people, and you need to start talking to them and hearing their problems, and be a little bit more compassionate, and be in a place where you can give people grace. So that's why this is important to me. That's why I'm here. I found that I can get the best out of teams when I'm more personal with them, when I know them, and so that's why I'm here talking about this. That's on that. Thanks.
Hi everybody, I'm Avnit Kang. I'm safety with Southland Industries. The reason I'm here today is because mental health is a huge component of the construction industry, and I think it's been glossed over. And I'm very passionate with safety, and the two parallels for me are exponential. We'll kind of, as we go into our presentations, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But when we're looking at what we're doing and what we're building and all of that, and the different factors that come in, mental health is something that we talk about, but we don't want to talk about, and how it's expressed and what's going on and everything. And I think when you incorporate it into different ways that we're having these conversations, and it's uncomfortable, right? So like, why am I here? It's because I'm uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable, we're all uncomfortable about it, but in that uncomfortable zone is where the growth is, right? So these conversations and these people that are all here as leaders is having that conversation, right? What are you doing? What are we doing? How do we have a shared collective thing? Charlie talked about pull planning. When you guys are pull planning, it's essentially getting all our leaders into one area, pulling the ideas, and we're building a job, right? But at the baseline, it goes back to what Henry said, and these are all humans that we're dealing with, and how are we gonna build something if some of our humans are compromised, right? This person's having a bad day, that person's doing this person's doing that, but what does that look like? Because at the end of the day, we're always just like, you know what, we have that get her done attitude, and we wanna check certain things at the door, because it's a job, and this is a stigma, and this is what's going on. But it takes initiative to be uncomfortable, right? And I'm gonna keep saying that over and over, but in that zone is where we're gonna have that growth, and I think that's why I'm very passionate, and that's why I show up and have these conversations. And the other part of it is, construction is, it's not like we're Bay Area tech industry, right? Everyone has these like super fancy jobs, they get all this stuff, and the majority of us are strapping on our work boots and we're walking a job site, and there's this shift that's happening, right? There's a huge workforce gap. And when we're getting this younger generation that's coming in, and I'm going to the college fairs and I'm talking about it, there's no way that you're not going to talk about mental health with the workforce that's coming in. So if we're not taking the initiative to have those conversations, we're missing out on a huge group of people that might be interested in this job, but because we don't want to talk about it and we're just shoving it under that rug and we're like, that's not my problem, we're missing out on people. So if we're going to work in a people industry, we got to prioritize people, and that includes mental health. What I would like you guys to take away is be uncomfortable. It's weird, it's funky, but in that weird zone is where the growth is, and I think if we start the conversation and we kind of start getting it going, that's how we're going to pull plan to a better future.
Sorry to follow over here. Hello everyone, I'm Andrew Tranovich, MEP at Webport Builders, general contractor. This is important to me because I continue to experience different eras of mentality around this. Much like Charlie's talking about, seeing different approaches to this out of the job site and the office even. We can talk about the office too, the same kind of challenges. Like Avnit was saying, I work with people of all different ages, the whole spectrum. So right out of school, all the way to almost retiring, and they all are deserving of that grace and understanding we're talking about, and the ability to talk about this. I have navigated my own industry burnout. I'm here today, so I found the other side of it, but it's real. I'd ask you guys to raise your hands and wait out on too, but let's rip the Band-Aid off. Raise your hand if you felt like you've had a burnout moment. All right, there you go. Yeah. So almost everybody. I'm going to do a couple hand raise things as well. So I started recognizing the signs that I had myself and others, and I wanted to get in front of it for them. So maybe you can't fully prevent somebody from doing that to themselves, working themselves down into the ground, but you can be supportive and show them there's alternative ways to think about mental health and have healthy boundaries. I see the pre-pandemic as kind of the reactive era, post-pandemic is kind of the proactive era, if you kind of want to do a side of the coin thing. We're not swimming upstream as much as we were anymore, like we were pre-pandemic. So you're all here today, this is a sellout meeting. Proactive, you're all proactive for being here. My challenge, I'll pass the mic, is normal, quote-unquote normal, is a construct. It's in your mind. It's not written down anywhere. It's not a global assumption. It's all individual. Each of you have your own version. My challenge is that this has always been okay to talk about. The stigma is just in our own minds. So we need to get past that and just talk about it as it should be. It's just a construct.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Nick Norgaard with Del Monte Electric. I'm here today on a more personal note. I've been lucky enough to bear witness to what mental health, and more specifically addiction, has done to my extended family. And I say lucky in that it hasn't directly impacted my life, but I was able to see what it can do and how it can take over a person and their entire livelihood. More recently, I had the opportunity to be a small part of helping somebody, one of my colleagues who I now consider a friend, through their rock bottom, using some of the experience I've had in my personal life to try to remember the person and be there for them through that process. What I'm going to do today is share some of that story and then share how our company is attempting to keep this conversation going and keep it top of mind so that something that we've experienced, maybe it helps one person, right? It doesn't happen to them.
Thank you, panelists. So, again, today we're not trying to have a bullet point presentation. I've asked each, and these are all, as you can hear, very well capable people, but more importantly, they're willing to share their stuff, their stories. And what I love about LCI is 18 years of me being a part of LCI is that, we talk about sharing secrets, and this is part of that. This is what this happens not to be, well, it actually is. Helps you do better at your job. But it's more on a personal level. And we're willing to do that, and we want that to be repeated. I was a superintendent for 12 of my years in Southland, but sheet metal worker for the last 37 years. And so I'm talking about stuff I've been through and experienced, and the whole McKinsey and the whole thing, and how you get ahead in this industry was be tough, right? But broken. You just don't tell anybody until you break, And so this is a conversation as we talked about. I put this slide out with a background of a job site because as we were talking about welcome through this, that's the lab. The job site is really our lab. Things happen in our home, but we're talking about people who sometimes come to work to die. People who come to work and do drugs. People who come to work who are drunk from alcohol, and just out of control. And so we're experiencing all these types of things on our job site. And hey, we're just going to come to do our job at work, but we're faced with different things, especially if you're a leader. Whether you're in the office or you're in the field, you're going to deal with some stuff that we used to make the joke about, am I a teacher today, am I a psychologist, am I a counselor, can I just be, the field leader? Like, well, no, you got to do all of it. You don't know what day, you got to put the different hat on. But it happens, and it doesn't come when you're ready for it, it just happens. And so one thing I've learned about this work and mental health and well-being in a conversation is you can do it. You don't have to have a license to talk somebody really off the edge, right? You just have to have the give a damn kind of personality. Somebody who actually cares about somebody and say, this is more important than that right now. And sometimes that we just need to say that. Like, you actually can save a life because you have no idea. You're a little bit of hope in a dark room. It's like a candle with no light, right? That's light. And so we can all do that. And so the job site is literally our lab. And so I want to tell one quick story and I'm going to pass it back over. But this is what we're here to do today. We always tend to talk about this, so you can agree with bullet points that this is what our objectives are in each of our panelists, and just kind of share some stories. But one thing that really hit me, and I'll say his name because he told me I could tell the story, he's retired now. But there's a guy, some of you know him, Ron Heiss was one of our superintendents. He worked for about 10, 11 years here. And one day on Ron's 9th anniversary, and Ron's notorious, he was known in the industry, running big work and all these big jobs around the country, around California, and came to work for us. And in his 9th year anniversary, I'm literally at home, about to go to bed. It's about 9:30 at night, and I get an email from Ron. And I'm reading this email, and the heading was my 9th anniversary. And he told me, I want to remind you of a story he told me. 9 years before, we were at Cityville about to do something with the workforce development and the young folks. And I forced Ron to go. He didn't want to go because he thought, I'm just going to get a bunch of knuckleheads and I'm going to have to fire, and, you know. So at that time, I was his boss. So I said, no, I'm going to go. So he goes reluctantly, hands and arms folded in the back, and he's sitting there. And then he ends up hiring a kid that he didn't necessarily believe was going to be good. And the kid showed up like 45 minutes early, you know, in the city, and became one of his best apprentices. And Ron told me, he told me that he heard me use the word empathy at Cityville. And he said he's looking at me, shaking his head, whether it's inside shaking or outside shaking. He says, that word does not belong in construction. What the hell is he talking about? And he told me that. Years later, he realized how important that word really was. And I got to see Ron go and do things that he would have never done. In this email, he said, I've become not only a better leader, but a better husband, a better father, right? A better team lead. And that's like literally the best email that I've ever gotten from anybody. For him to say that to me and have the courage to send me an email at 9:30 at night, this macho, tough guy who's run all this work, multi-million dollars over the years, wanted to say the word empathy meant something to him. I would not think I was going to get that. I can bank on Ron's going to send me an email one day that's going to say, hey, thanks for sharing the word empathy, what it meant to you, right? Didn't think that was going to happen. So just the power of that, you know, and him being able to say that to me, and I got to see him instrumentally walk around on job sites and really be impactful and just see all people, where he was hiring different folks that he would have never even thought twice at, right? And one day we're in New Orleans at one of our LCI events, and we're walking down the block, and there's this black dude playing country music on the corner with a bucket wanting money. And we're just walking, he just helped hold him in, Henry. He walks and does this J-line across the street, and he gives the guy $20. And he walks back over to him and just, I don't know, man, I guess it's this freaking empathy workforce. Just give him a high five and just kept walking, you know? But just to see a person that transformed, right? And not everyone's gonna have that story, but the fact that he chose to do his job a different way. He was still impactful, he was still productive, he was still like on point on his job. He just wasn't an asshole anymore. And he admitted that, right? And sometimes it's just that simple, right? But it takes a lot, because between that a-hole and being this productive leader, there's a lot in between for lots of reasons, right? And I don't judge people because they don't know their story. But what he proved is that you don't have to be that to be effective. And if you could walk away with anything from me today, my charge would be to take this in and recognize that you can be you and be effective. But I know in this industry, we watch the people who've soared and who've done well, and they've done well with that a-hole title. So, hey, I'm gonna repeat that and I'm gonna be fine. And it's worked, right? But now we don't have to do that. We can teach a different way. And so, again, I'm excited about what we're gonna talk about today, what these guys are gonna talk about. So, we're gonna go to, and if you guys have any questions and want to stop us, feel free. So, we're gonna talk about strategies. And I kind of purposely have it logos, so we're gonna go first, second, third. So what's working? We're gonna start with Nick about what's working and outreach type support initiatives that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit bigger picture here. We talked about, and I've heard it a couple times, leaning into the people. While at a company scale, that may be a really difficult thing to do or to implement as a strategy. What I believe that we do that comes from the top is we have tried to affect our circle that we touch positively, right? We have the ability on these job sites to make people feel like family. And the message I'm gonna try to portray through telling this story is that we can't just talk the talk, right? We have to, very cliche, we have to also walk the walk, right? And sometimes that's gonna be really difficult to do. It's gonna feel like a risk. when I read the stats about our industry as it relates to addiction and suicide, they're eye-opening. Looking at our people as a number is something where I think we need to be better, right? We spend more time during the week with colleagues and coworkers than we do with our own family. Well, that's sad. It's true. So for me, I want to love the people I'm working with, feel the people I'm working with, be part of what they are, right? Our belief as a company culture, and I believe it, and it comes from the top, is that each person is part of our family. It gives us the opportunity early to create bonds so that when times do get tough, because they will, we're able to lean into the person we knew, not necessarily the event that may have occurred or the person that something like addiction has turned them into. I talked a little bit about my story. It's going to be a story about somebody hitting rock bottom. My friend was hiding. In our industry, this macho man, I can handle everything, I'm okay, I don't cry mentality, it still prevails. We heard signs that were not affecting his work, but instead of asking the tough questions, we asked some surface level questions, and we said we'd pay attention. There were signs. We moved on until it was too late. We got a call on a Sunday from the Vallejo PD that a Del Monte truck had been discovered in a ditch, bloodied, the cab inside the cab bloodied and reeking and smelling of alcohol. The car had been totaled and abandoned on the side of the road, and our initial reaction was the worst. Is this person still with us, right? Is this person that I consider a friend still around? So we scrambled, we did what anybody would do in this situation. We got a hold of their family, we called the hospitals, we called the jails, places where we expected him to be, where we're hoping he'd be so that he wasn't somewhere else, right? Once he resurfaced, after working with his family to locate him, it was clear to everybody, his family included, that he'd been hiding this disease for forever. Forever to us, for me, was the 5 years of knowing him, but he was hiding it, and he was hiding it well. He was an alcoholic. He was a functioning alcoholic who came to work, did his job very well, but was battling these demons that nobody could really pinpoint, right? He was so good at hiding it from all of us. My first interaction with my friend at the junkyard with the truck, he was okay, he was relatively unscathed, but the look in his eye was one of, is my life over? What did I do? You could see his life flashing before his eyes, not only his career, but everything, his family, his kids. And I said to him, not something that I came up with, but something I heard my father say to one of his best friends, that if every decision you make moving forward doesn't take your kids and your family into consideration, then you're not the man that I thought you were. And to this day, we talk about how impactful that was to him and how impactful it was to me when I heard it early on in my life. Instead of taking the advice of our insurance companies and others, our owner took a risk. He leaned into the person. He didn't remember the person he had become. He remembered the person that we knew who was part of the Del Monte family. He was acting on what we preach. Over the next few months, Del Monte ended up helping being a bridge for this individual to gain the tools that he needed to be comfortable being uncomfortable. he recently told me this metaphor that really was his aha moment, and it was, I can walk into a job site, go to my toolbox, and have every tool that I need to build a hospital. But when I left the job site and I walked in my front door, I didn't have tools to know how to deal with the pressure of everything that was coming around from his career, from his personal life, the small things that happen, family. He didn't have the tools to deal with it. So he used the only tool he knew. And through therapy and a lot of work, he gained those tools. The message here isn't good for us, we stuck with him. It's the people matter. It's taking a risk may be worth it, right? Even as a company. Maybe the initial reaction is like the insurance tug. We can't keep this guy around. But I mean, talking about a success story, he's one of the best electricians that I know and I respect, and he's officially 1,120 days sober. He checked in with me today. That's 3+ years. We all know that. We're in construction, but it's honestly the most fulfilling, terrible experience that I've been a part of in my career, and I'm thankful that it happened to me or around me, because just like I'm thankful that I saw mental illness and addiction earlier on in my life, it's allowed me to set my line in the sand with these demons and these things that can take over us on what's acceptable, and using these things that are happening around us to hopefully take it and help somebody else. So if he would want one thing to come out of this, it would be, if somebody that you know has changed their behavior, big or small, there's probably something happening in their life, right? So it's easy for us to, hey, you good? And then if you get a no, or usually it's the, yeah, I'm all right guy, maybe dig a little deeper, right? Ask the harder questions like we would have. Thank you.
Exponentially, right? Like there's a huge thing we're looking at, you can monetize it, it's very litigated, there's a different scope that we're looking at, it's because it's become a business model, right? However, it's hypocritical if we don't tie in mental health, because we're saying, hey, your physical safety is important and this is what matters, but your mental safety isn't, and it's hypocritical, and I think the more we kind of get on board with that and start looking into that, that's where kind of the growth is. At Southland, and just some of the stats I was looking at earlier, when we look at fatalities, there's around 3 a day in the construction industry. However, there's 10 to 12 suicides that happen every day. So those numbers we're looking it's insane, right? And if we add them together, that's around 15 people every single day. We're investing a lot, we're doing a lot, there's a lot of initiative in safety to prevent these fatalities in the construction industry, but then we're missing almost 10 to 12 people with the mental health, the suicide, and all of that. And how do we kind of bridge that gap, and how can we make it, like I said earlier, uncomfortable to become, grow from that? There's different things, and I think when safety first started out, as well as mental health, and we're looking at what's going on, it's because the numbers were growing at a point where we're like, hey, hit the pause button, we have to do something has to change, how do we shift from this, right? And it's because we've had some sort of trial and error, whatever's gone on. And then it shifts into essentially a training, right? We're all in California. California has very stringent laws, and mental health gets incorporated. Now every company has this check the box training that they have to do, right? You're calling in all your GFs, you're calling in all your field, or you're doing the harassment training, whatever it might be, just to check the box. When you make it into check the box, you've lost the importance of it, right? It's just, hey, we're coming in once a year, it's just something I have to do, and you've already, before the people are already in the room, they don't care. It's just something that you have to do to get to the next stage, to get to whatever the next thing is, and you've lost any possible bite that you would have had with these people. And those could be people that are struggling with either addiction, they could be that guy that's just kind of hiding under something, they're trying to escape something for them, and then now they're just, it doesn't matter, right? If we're coming in and Andrew's like, hey, I'm the boss, I'm the owner, come in, you gotta do this training, I'm gonna be like, he doesn't care, why should I care? We're just doing this because we have to do it. And so I think at Southland, one of the things that we're doing and it's making a big difference is just sprinkling it in, right? We're including it during the tailbox talks. We have a intensive foreman training and then we'll kind of throw it in there. And it's not something that's, you're going down this path and then all of a sudden there's this huge like boulder in the middle and it's mental health. It's just another thing that's on your path and you're kind of going through the motions with everything. So if you kind of just hate everything, it's just one more thing added to your list that you hate rather than this one big thing that you're gonna hate on the side. And it's just that sprinkling, right? Keeping that conversation, you wanna keep a pulse on it and it's just keep it alive, right? How do you grow a garden? You're constantly watering it, you're nurturing it, you're keeping it, giving it constant attention, and it's not, hey, that plant's dying, let me go water it once a year right before it dies down to keep it going again. So that continuous conversation is vital, it's important. Another thing that I think is huge, and we just started incorporating it, I would say, the past couple of years, is you have policies, we have programs, we're going through the motion, great, you're keeping the conversation up. All of that, you kind of lose perspective because when we're looking at a stat, and it's kind of like Nick's story, right? That for us, that was going to be a stat, but for him, that's his friend. And so when you have leaders and you have someone that you're sharing a story with, it desensitizes that statistic. Because when we're looking at someone, right, we look at heart attacks. How many heart attacks happen a year? It's a number. The American Heart Association has one, this person has one. But then you go and you say, hey, my uncle just had a heart attack. That's not a stat anymore. That's someone that you know. That's someone that you love. That's someone that you respect. They have a family. And that's the same thing with mental health. We talk about suicide and it's a stat, it's a number, it's this. But then you take a step back and we talk about not just suicide, but anxiety. We talk about addiction. We talk about panic disorder, whatever it might be. And now we start talking and having these different conversations and saying, hey, I also struggle with anxiety. How, like, you know, what's going on for you? Now it's not a stat, it's a number. And the way we've kind of incorporated that is we've had some of our superintendents, and we have that foreman's training, and it's run by our superintendent. And at the end of the mental health segment, he'll say, hey, I'm on anxiety medication. This is what I struggle with. This is what I'm dealing with. We have, Henry mentioned Ron Heiss, we have different unions that we're working with that have rehab programs. And keeping that pulse, right? Hey, this is available. This is something that you can utilize if you want it there. I know personally Ron Heiss facilitated at least 4 people through the 104 rehab program and helped them with their addiction. And it's having those different avenues, and you're only gonna have an avenue and that road if someone is gonna kind of be there to put you through that road, right? And what does that look like? It's getting your supervisors to have some sort of buy-in. It's showing up. I know I was uncomfortable, I know I have 2 Southland people here, but it makes me feel a lot better to see all the Southland people out here because it's not just me, but it's them. Feeling like you're part of something where everybody else has some sort of shared investment makes it easier to have a conversation. Because I can be like preaching it, talking about it, until my face is blue, annoying the shit out of Charlie, annoying Henry, annoying everyone at Southland, but then I look out and I see, oh, okay, Bailey cares, Alex cares, Clayton cares. There's other people in here at Southland that I know that I have that some sort of conversation with and can have that and talk to them, right? Because I'm gonna, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, we're just humans, and as macho as everybody in here is gonna be and the industry is, we're just looking for something to connect with, right? It takes that little connection to have a conversation, and then that turns into a bigger conversation. And I think Southland does a really good job about putting the right people into right places, whether it's training like this, our foreman's training, having different people out here in different trades, and investing into them to spread that. That's what it is. It's just kind of putting the right people in the right place and keeping that pulse constantly going. Because when you just make it into like a, all right guys, once a year, mental health, here you go, sign the box, good job, go over there, get a cookie, you've lost it. And when you've lost that, you've lost the people and kind of the priority over trying to get them.
So since we work at the same time, she really touched on a lot of things, like kind of, you know, the state policies. When you talk about all like the resources from 104 or the UAs on the drug rehabilitation programs and stuff like that, but like what I lean on a lot, like the safety, I love the safety people because they will do the 4-hour orientation. And they're going to be like our first line of defense. where we talked a lot about this, the first line of defense, and it's happened where we kind of got somebody who's in there who's not quite right, or a little off right, and we have big jobs, and we're going to send these people out into these crews with all these people that I care about. So that's our first line of defense, and we can stop that from them getting out there, and we can get them some help before they get out into the crews and mix. So they're the first line of defense, and they really do a great job. But the next is like, aside from all the company policies, the performance meetings, the trainings that we do, like just my personal like journey, I just try to be approachable with people. I think coming up, like if the superintendent says something to you, like they didn't talk to you. People just walk by, they didn't talk to you. So I try to like, we also have people's names on their hard hats, so, which is helpful, but for the most part I know a lot of their names, but I can go up and I'll go up and I don't care if it's a pre-price or a journey person or whatever, I'm gonna shake their hand and say hello. Be approachable, so it kind of gives a relationship and they feel comfortable talking. That's one thing that I do. Just first, like an event that happened where somebody had kind of a mental breakdown on the job they were running. They asked to be removed from the job, and this is just kind of showing you that we're kind of, a lot of times we give these buzzwords like people first and all this shit, but like we really practice it where this person asked for this, and like I'll tell you, 15 years ago I probably left them on the job and then we would have laid them all off and got them out of there, right? But we took them off the job, we moved them away from the job because that's what, right? The asked us not, we moved them off the job, put them onto a different thing, and I go and check in with him like once a month. Check in, see how he's doing. We've had long conversations on the phone. And you know what? It's like everybody that, nobody said, hey, we need to get rid of this guy. We said, man, this guy has done so much for this company. And he's a huge asset. We need to put him in a position where he can succeed, right? And that's kind of how this has evolved into 2026. This is where we're at, where we're not just going to throw people away. Everybody goes through problems. Just because I can compartmentalize something different than somebody else doesn't mean that I'm better. We can find a place for them. So that's just like an example of how, I guess, Southland, and I'm just going to, how I kind of approach things. And I think you think the same, and we all kind of think the same. That's why we're up there. But that's how I approach things. It's just the people first. And let's just find out how we can help this person rather than how we can demoralize or throw this person away or kick them out to the curb, because that's not going to do anything for anybody's mental well-being, for sure. And she touched on everything else, all best practices. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew.
Who's heard of the biodigester project? Heard of that one? All right. I expected more hands this week. So, not everybody experiences the holidays the same way. The biodigester project is a very community-focused project, which makes it kind of at the leading edge of some of this stuff. And they just had a 4-day mental health event leading towards the holidays, because everyone experiences it differently. It's not all roses for everybody. It was 1 day a week, 4 weeks leading up to it. They had, and there's I think on one of the slides coming up, will be a picture of it. 15 minutes site-wide stand-downs. I mean, site-wide, that job is hundreds of people. To share resources, union reps spoke, the different company leaders spoke, trade councils came, mental health professionals came, and everyone got to listen and be a part of that. Leading up to the holidays, it was very strategic to try and smooth that for people and give them a different perspective. And introduce them to the resources available to them. Next topic is we use LIRA. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that. Employee assistance programs are part of the benefits of a lot of places you folks work. I've ignored them for years until recently. LIRA connects you with a mental health professional. Our benefit at Nutt is a session per month for free. You may have something similar to that. So it's worth looking. Dig in the benefits literature and see if you have it. All the paperwork is on them. I haven't had to do anything. I signed up online. There's no forms. There's no nothing. I don't even have to do billing or anything, which is great. I just had my session yesterday. I meet with my therapist I was connected with monthly, free. Take advantage of it. I don't always have things to talk about. Sometimes I do. And it's good to just have somebody who it can be a listener. You know, if you don't have a wonderful coworker with some of these folks, the therapy professionals are designed to interact with you, and listen to you, and support you, and kind of dig into how your life's going. Our stats on that are surprisingly good. I talked with our HR about our utilization. 20% of the eligible population, that's 1 out of 5, is registered with LIRA. So these are optimistic stats. Introduce a couple optimistic ones. 10% of the population has had at least one session. So that's 10% of hundreds of people that have had at least one session. So if that's not a turn and tide indicator, I'm not sure what it is. Part of that is how the company socializes the use of the program. So you can't just say, we have employee assistance programs, it's the back 6 pages of the benefit booklet. They have to talk about it, put it on their intranet page, mention it in their ops meetings. I see it as very normal now. I'm hoping that you guys can maybe go look and find something like that, potentially, as a way to get started. 2026 is going to focus more on the manager side of things at Web4, focusing on training of people managers, because the people managers interact with people of all different ages all day. Like Charlie was saying, we kind of go from doing the work to just interacting with people all day. So it's a very people-oriented industry. How to recognize those concerns and signs, right? How to recognize some training to recognize the signs. Things to say, try and help people who, you might not have the tools to help the person who doesn't have the tools. And so this is a way to kind of empower individuals to do that. And there was a recent example where a foreman called for assistance based on someone who said they were thinking of hurting themselves or something like that. So it does work, it does happen. We were able to support that individual. 2 more quick examples. On-site therapy does work. So the Santa Clara Valley Medical Center Behavioral Health Services Center. You guys know how to say it. A good friend and close coworker of mine on my team died as a surprise. He had a heart attack, just didn't come back to work the next week. It was a shocker to the whole team, because you're just, one day you're in a meeting with folks, and the next day you're just gone, just don't come back ever. I went to his funeral, I cried like a baby. So the next day after, so we had a day back, and we kind of learned everything, right? That was kind of a learning day of what happened, where is he talking with his wife and family. The day after that, there were counselors on site in a conference room with the door open, right, for any employee to come and talk, and just come in and just talk. I walked right in, took advantage of that. I made sure I was visible doing that, so that others could see me doing that and feel like they could also do that. I know a few people went in. I didn't really keep track of the doorways, but it was really helpful to go and, before something becomes a concern, just talking with somebody who's really very supportive. It's still a little painful to think about that individual, but that really helped steer in the right direction, talking to somebody, taking advantage. The second example is a positive culture possible in the face of adversity. So we have a project we're finishing out in the middle of the desert. It's federal. These things all sound like it's difficult to work out there, right? There's no resources, it's low bid. Trade partners are a real mixed bag when you get remote low bid work. It's probably the worst or second worst project I've ever seen for quality. Those individuals out there are incredibly durable. I've been helping them with MEP issues for the past 3 years, and they have handled their adversity out there excellently. I go out there, the most positive job site. Like, I interact with these folks who go out to dinner, they're laughing. The issues lists are, 6 feet tall with an Excel file, right? Like, it's crazy. But, and there's people, trade partners lying and things, shady things happening, but something about their culture kept them mentally positive, supportive of each other. And as we're winding down staff and people are spinning out of that, they're bringing some of that durability to other project teams. So now it's San Jose I mentioned. One of those individuals from that project is there now, and you can see that durability, and he's interacting with the rest of the team. Hopefully that's the way it is. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Go keep your mic. Thank you, Andrew. So this is our last one before we go into our call to action. We'll do the same thing, but just talking about actionable steps and things. Like, I think Andrew, you mentioned about when you have a life tragedy that happens, it's someone that you work with every day that all of a sudden is gone, right? And I just sitting here thinking about a couple people that I remember at Southland, long-term guy that was planning on retiring, and he had a sailboat, and he was spending his weekends sailing or getting his boat together, and then he had an incident where he got into an accident because he had a stroke while he was driving a company vehicle, and had a terrible accident, and no one knew that he had a stroke. They just thought he had a terrible accident. And so the paramedics weren't able to administer drugs that would have helped dissolve that clot. And so he was paralyzed and in the hospital for a long time and recovering. And then one day he had a heart attack and died. And all those were attached to this guy that we knew was going to make it. And as you say, we were at a funeral crying our eyes out, because this guy that we knew was gone. And his mom and his wife and his kids were there, and it was just a very sad scenario. So my question, and this is kind of like ties into that, is like, we have the people who are left, right? The ones who, like, whether it's your family or it's your best friend or somebody you just worked with your entire life, now there's this gap. And then people got to go back to work. Like, they got to go back to work. What do we do? How do we help? Right? What are some actual things that we can do? And not all of it has to be scientific and with a licensed therapist. Some of it is just, how do you be a friend? How do you help someone cope, right? And so I want to kind of like take this one to kind of deal with that. Let's take like 3 to 5 minutes because we have a call to action after this. We want to take some questions. So we can start with that.
We get a closing part too.
Yes.
All right, so got a couple of things to share. Small cards that we carry and share, and that are placed all around our conference rooms, job sites, people's desks. I have a few on my desk. It says, "Speak up for safety, courage to speak, power to save, safety anonymous hotline." Other side, QR code. If you or anyone you know needs help, contact the hotline by dialing this number or texting this to this code. I was going to bring a big pile of these and let you guys take one, and then I learned that that's a web course specific. So I just brought one, so it looks like this. But these are good. You can put these in your vest pocket, right? And you're walking around and someone's like having a shitty day. Just give them one of these and say, "Man, I care about you." If it's, if you feel like this is impacting your life, here's somebody else you can talk to. I create those small moments for casual interaction, right? You talk about these casual interactions where you try to meet the person and know the person. There's a couple of easy ones that anybody in this room can do. One I call the 6-foot rule, right? If you come within 6 feet of somebody, say hello. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter at all. They could be the owner of the project you're on. They could be the engineer that you don't like. It could be somebody from another company. Doesn't matter. That quick recognition and connection has a general cultural impact that I'm already seeing on some projects by doing that and suggesting to teams to do that. How do you do that more often? Fill your water and coffee halfway. That's another secret. Because when you do that, you get up more often. When you get up more often, you bump into people more often. When you become more social, and you say hello to those people, and it just grows from there. So I've shared this with others. It works. Fill halfway. Do what?
Build them all the way. I think you guys said that.
Oh yeah. I don't speak with people in the restroom. This applies in the hallways and office. Thank you. Another immediately actionable one is try meditation at home in private. It's free. It costs you nothing. Sit and close your eyes. I try to meditate every day. Sometimes it's every other day. 10 minutes, you'll see wonders happen. You'll get in touch with your inner self more. Things will become clear to your intuition. Just close your eyes, calm the mind a little bit. It really does work. So and keep doing it each day. It's free. It costs you nothing. Anybody can do it.
So I would say that this person in my story told me that maybe as they're hiding, the last person in the world they wanted to be honest with and stand up and say I have a problem is their employer, right? Why would you tell the person who has a direct impact on putting food on your family's table that you have a problem? How scary is that? Terrifying. So outside of some of the personal touches that you talked about, what we continue to do is make the resources that are very prevalent in the union, right? Available, visual. That's a great idea. We're going to steal that one on the card, right? We've done something not to that scale with the QR code. And through this process, we've come up with an idea called Wellness Corner, right? It's not just visuals at a job site or visuals in our office. It's in our newsletter that goes out monthly. We have a separate section for people that may be struggling, right? To make sure that they know we're there. We understand that they may not want to come to us, but there are other places they can go. One very special place right now is, I'm going to go back to the story. This individual has made himself available to anybody who we may be getting an inkling that is going through something, right? Or could be going through something similar. And he will make a phone call, right? On a more personal level, on a more I've been through this, are you okay level? And he's starting to become this voice, this powerful voice in our company for people who may be struggling. I think that alone, right, is utilizing the people that we have to try to make a difference. I'm excited for what it could be.
So I kind of talked about just keeping that conversation alive and having different people in different places. I think that's going to be your best type of reach, right? Is tapping into people's peopleness and figuring out what that web looks like and continuing the conversation and continuing to grow relations. Andrew kind of talked about meditation, and I think the other part of this is what you do outside of your house kind of matters, what you do outside of your work and at your house kind of ties in. But sometimes talking about what that looks like too, right? I do yoga and my sister likes to run, and those are our coping mechanisms. But if I try to run and she does yoga, we're like having a panic attack, right? So figuring out and having that conversation, I think coping mechanisms is a huge, huge part of it. And I know when we're at the beginning of the conversation, we're just kind of getting, like, inching our way into the thing, and then that's kind of like the bigger picture of stuff. But when I first started working at Southland, I feel like everyone had the same 4 or 5 hobbies. They were either riding the Harleys, hunting, fishing, something that involved killing something, right? And they were like, oh, well, like, do you hunt? Do you do this? And I'm like, I mean, I walk down like the meat aisle, and that's a cool thing. Like picking up something. I've never fished. I mean, and golfing, right? So like through the years, I kind of started golfing, and I went fishing one time ever. It was probably one of the worst experiences I've had in my life. And you know, but those are coping mechanisms, and those are communities. That's a lot of what we're doing, right? And figuring out what that is and building that bond. Wyatt Smiley's standing out there, and I know he's a big bike rider. I'm not getting on a bike, but you know, he might go out there, and that's meditative for him. That's something that's calming. That's his meditation. So meditation doesn't have to be where you're just sitting there cross-legged and you're kind of just zoning out, which is what I like to do. It could be what he's doing, which is riding his Harley. But when he's doing that, he can reach out to another GM or another PE or somebody else that likes to do that. And I think that's part of building that community and people and having those conversations. And once they go on a couple of rides, they might talk, they might vent. Again, I brought it up earlier, construction is a very, very niche industry. I cannot have some of the conversations and some of the hardships I'm going with a lot of my other friends and family, because they're just kind of like, what? Like, what did that guy do? Like, what are you talking about? It just doesn't click. But if I go talk to somebody else that's in the industry, they connect to it differently, right? You don't have to spend an hour giving a backstory to get to your point, because they get it. And finding that community is huge, and I think the more we rely on the people that we have that have similar understanding, and then also those same 4 to 5 hobbies, it's building a bigger picture. And I think that's essentially what we're all doing here today, is kind of, again, getting uncomfortable to get uncomfortable to grow, but using the little pieces that we have to build that base so we can keep building that bigger picture. And just tapping into things, like, it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to walk up to someone and be like, hey, why are you crying? Are you depressed? Like, what's going on? It's just, hey, like, you want to go over there? You want to grab lunch? Hey, you want to go golf this weekend? You want to go fishing? It's those type of conversations that we're encouraging. And then go golfing with someone a couple of times. You start, you know, that's when things start unraveling. Nick kind of brought up this story earlier, and we had something very similar that happened. There's 2 big stories that I've seen in my career at Southland that kind of stick out. One was, we talked about females, and we have obviously a very small amount of females that are in the trades. And I went to a funeral of one female who committed suicide as a plumber. She jumped in front of a bar track, and a good chunk of that issue that led her to that was work stress. And everybody at the funeral is coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? I could have done this, I should have done this, I would have done this. Hindsight's 20/20, but when we're here having these conversations, you want to keep that conversation flowing, because it could happen to anyone, right? We look at stats, but then again, that's a person. Another one that was a huge, like, kind of what the fuck moment was, we have, at Southland, all of our superintendents get together from all divisions, and they meet in one city. And all the plumbing superintendents were in Northern California, and they're meeting all together, and they're, you know, go out, they have fun, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking to one from one of our other divisions. This is like the most happy-go-lucky guy, cannot sense anything, he has a full, like, just the most warmest, nicest guy. Everyone has nothing but good things to say to him. The meeting ends on Thursday. Monday morning, I get a call that he committed suicide that Sunday. And again, we're talking, right, there's stats. Everyone has a stat, everyone has a stat. But it's not a stat, that person's gonna fall into that stat, right? We're talking 10 to 15 suicides a day, but now that's someone that I knew. And now it changes, right? It changes how you look at things. And then when you're having that conversation, and again, being uncomfortable to have that growth, it's keeping that person's story. And it's weird, right? You go to the funeral, a lot of times you go to these job sites and you do the pass the hard hat, and everyone's gonna put money into it. But are you talking about it? Are we checking in on why we're doing that? Are we talking about how the other person's doing? Did we talk to the other superintendents? How are they feeling? What happened there? How are they feeling? Et cetera, et cetera. And it's just using that web and figuring out what your connection point is and keep talking about it. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can do, and that's kind of what I've been trying to do to try to kind of keep that conversation going.
So, some actual strategies for any company, right? How you orientate your folks coming in, I think is a big one. Right? Like I said, our team does like a 4-hour orientation. And then when these folks come into our shop, I know our 2 shop managers, they give these guys a big orientation, and they do like a interview in the first part of when they come in, and then they'll do check-ins, and they'll do an exit interview. And on the job site, I think it's really important when I was running jobs, like to sit down, talk to some folks, give them expectations, talk to them, see where they're at, meet them where they're at, right? Orientating our folks coming in is pretty important, how we do that. Morning huddles, I think are super important that anybody can do. Recently I was working at a company where I had a little stop where I came in to run the shop, and in the morning they were not doing morning huddles, and I'm like, what the hell? I see everybody walks in and they just don't know where they're going. I don't even know how they know where they're supposed to get to. So, okay, stop, time out, we're all gonna do a morning huddle, and we can sit there, we can stretch and flex, and I can talk to guys and gals, kind of see where people are, see if they're right in the morning, if they're not right, give people a chance to talk, right? Morning huddles, it makes you feel more of a community, it brings people together, it might make people feel more comfortable to talk. I've seen on job sites where people want to go through the motions on the stretch and flex, and I don't think that's right. I think you should definitely be down and stretch and flex and talk and make the most out of that 5 or 10 minutes. Just to make people feel safe here, right? Another thing is resources. Knowing what resources to let people know about, like that we talked about lawn, giving people the union rehabilitation centers that they offer. They offer 2 rehabilitations to each member. Most importantly, you're a resource. You're a resource to talk to people. You're a resource to ask somebody how they're doing. You're a resource to not let something go unsaid. Man, God just said something. You're a resource. And sometimes, I mean, there's no playbook on this, but we got to make a call. We gotta make a decision. We got to try to help somebody out, even if there's no playbook to tell you if it's right or wrong, right? But you got to do something. Right? You're a resource. Another actionable strategy that I learned recently was, we're all kind of leaders in this room, right? And we think, what can we do for our people? But what can you do for yourself to bring your best self to the job that day, right? Recently over these holidays, I kind of with COVID and everything, I've just kind of been in a funk, and I noticed that I wasn't doing a couple of things in my life that have got to me to where I was, and I had to make some changes and bring a better me. And it wasn't in the workplace, it was at home. So I got to work on bringing a better me to life, right? So that people get the best out of me. So that's something you can do to make sure you bring the best of you to your job site, right? And your family. And then, just the things we've talked about, the actionable strategy, valuing people, that's most important. Like processes are processes, but people are the ones who are going to do the processes, right? People are, I worked at this one company where it said human capital, and it's real, the people are the value. You could have the worst processes and have the best people, and you're still going to get good results. You can have bad processes and the best people. You know how to do it. It's just not going to work. You're not going to bring people. And just getting to know your people. I think it's all kind of a common thread here, in South Bend, Del Monte, Webport. It seems like everybody gets to know their people and kind of know what they're going through. And that's just I've worked in a couple companies where people weren't valued and people were expendable, and most companies aren't even in business anymore. They're kind of just getting the deal what you put out, right? So just know your people and value them.
Great. Keep it, Charlie. So we're gonna go. So we want to make sure we have to give time for some Q&A. So take maybe 2 to 3 minutes max. Each of you guys are gonna kind of do a final remark, which you want to leave everybody here with. And me and Weedy were talking earlier about something else that you said was pretty strong, and it was like leaving a light on, say, at your doorstep. Like you have a dark house, living in a place where there's no lights, and so nobody really would want to go there. But if you left the light on, somebody might want to go there, right? And like you kind of tied into it, like we got to make sure we're okay and we're doing the work for ourselves so we can be the best version of ourselves when we show up to work. So all of us like go through these different emotions and different issues. And I can say last night, I just felt like I was on my computer and I just kind of felt like in a funk. I said, all right, just stop and just go to bed. But before I got into bed, I kind of did that meditation. I was kind of thinking about, okay, I'm not sure why I'm feeling like this, but I don't want to stay feeling like this. So let me just kind of focus on something positive, get a good night's sleep. And I woke up a little earlier and I felt like, okay, that helped me, right? But if I don't do that, I show up as a different version of myself that probably is not the best guy, for whatever reason and whatever that looks like. So that's really important so that you can be good for yourself before you can be good for someone else, right? So it's that whole oxygen mask thing. You gotta do that first. You are most important. So take a few minutes each and that's, what is a call to action? What are some final remarks you want to leave with this group? And then want to go into Q&A and let y'all go. You got the mic, Steve.
Okay, key points. I'm just going to talk about a key point that I thought when Henry was talking about that raw high story. I was thinking, man, the key takeaway from this for me is that raw high story. Now that was my general foreman, and that was kind of a mentor to me. And honestly, I started talking to him and seeing things that he was doing. I was kind of under that, he's an asshole and run big jobs, and I saw what he was doing, so man, he was like, that was somebody I looked up to, so I made a change, right? Just kind of a key point or takeaway in this, I just thought about it when he was talking, it was like, man, he had the courage to kind of change, and then I have the courage to change, so hopefully in my next 10 years, maybe I can get the courage to change, and maybe these other folks can do that too. So I think just being a leader and making a change and having some compassion is a key point here. Key points, just I don't know, I'm just gonna say just, you know, people first, giving people some grace, and just making sure you're mentally fit to show up for work. And the challenges of this, you guys, I really feel like is the challenges for me is as a leader and manager is really walking that line between giving people some grace but still trying to do my job. And it's a fine line. It's a fine line to walk sometimes. And sometimes you gotta let people go, and sometimes people get chances, and there's no right or wrong answer, but it's definitely a challenge, and you lose a little bit of sleep over it. And the resources, I think we've all talked about it. There's resources. I feel like I'm the biggest resource in here. It's just talking to people, right?
Key points is just over and over that we're people, and as we approach people, it might be a coworker, but just kind of could be someone's brother, could be someone's sister, someone's mom, someone's dad, and just, you know, bring that humanity into people. And as we're talking grace, empathy, all of that, we're, you know, just bring some emotions into it. One thing I've always said is the show goes on, right? That's the harsh reality of a lot of this stuff, regardless if someone passed away from a heart attack, from a suicide, natural causes, whatever it might be, the show's gonna keep going on, and your body and your mental health should not pay the price for that to keep going on. So, you know, check in every day, empower people. I think empowering people is the biggest thing. We talk about safety. Anytime you go to any meeting, it's always like that 5-minute safety thing, this and that, but it's hypocritical that we only care about physical safety and not people's mental safety. So kind of tie those in. Again, keep the pulse going, and I think your challenges, it's an uphill battle, right? It's, again, that same thing I've said over and over. It's being uncomfortable, getting weird, getting in that place, and having those weird conversations to have that growth that needs to happen. But until we get there, it's never going to be growing, right? We're just going to kind of all keep turning our blind eye to it, and it takes one person to kind of pivot and make that shift. And it could be you, it could be someone that's sitting next to you, or whoever it is. But it's going to be a challenge. It's a weird thing. It's a growing thing. It's a new thing, and figuring out what that is. Resources. Every single company, every person that's in here by the state of California definitely has resources. Tap into those. Those are kind of the check the box resources, and they're definitely there to help, and they do help. But I think the biggest resource is what Charlie said, which is going to be people and your community, and building those connections, and kind of just having this web that we can utilize different things for different people.
Mine will be interactive, so get ready to raise your hand. Raise your hand if you know any crusty, old school personalities in the industry. Which might even be you. Raise your hand if you know some younger team members who are learning how to fit in. Raise your hand if you've done one-on-ones with your team in the last year. Keep your hand up. Last 6 months. Last month. Last week. It's pretty good. This is more than I thought. We're today, yeah, right before this. You are the bridge cohort between these eras. It's you. You're not just listening to us. It's you. You show that this stigma is made up, doesn't exist. You are the change in the industry. Your foresight is 2020.
What's next? As I'm reading my notes, I'm realizing I was a little emotional going through this whole process, so I'm going to keep playing the violin. People have asked me, don't always anymore, but have asked me, do you love what you do? There's days where it's really hard to answer that question without hesitation. Yes, there's hours of days where it's hard to say yes to that. On those days or those hours, I lean into the fact that I always love the people that I'm doing this with, right? This industry is made up of the best people, in my opinion, in any other industry. I don't have that much experience elsewhere, but I truly believe that. So me reminding myself on those tough days that I get to work with the coolest people in the world gets me through those tough days. And trying to remind those out on site or near direct circle of that same fact, they help them too.
Thank you. I can just kind of close out before we do our plus delta takeaway. So one of the things that, as I listen to all of you, there's a common thing that I felt like I heard from each of you. Charlie started out with grace, and then talking about the importance of giving grace. And how many do you hear a superintendent talking about grace to anybody? Right? And so I applaud that, about grace and then being the resource. And Avnit, you talk about the importance of the growth and that uncomfortableness that we experience, and how important that is for us to like be okay with it, so we can press through it. And Andrew, I think I heard you talk about that we have this stigma that we've accepted that it's not normal to not talk about stuff, but you saying that no, that's the construct, that we need to normalize that it's okay. Like, where did that come from? Why did we buy into it? Right? So challenging that, and then you just brought your heart. You brought that story, man. We appreciate that. And so this was a diverse group. I appreciate all of you. And we did not rehearse, and I didn't want that to happen. I wanted us to bring the stories that were important to them, to have that type of engagement, and not tell them how to talk about it. So thank you for what you did. So I'm going to give you guys a hand. Thank you very much.